Dr. Paul Salah. He is the superintendent of Huron Valley Schools. He has served in a variety of capacities throughout his career in public education, including Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services for the Wayne Regional Educational Services Agency, as well as Deputy Superintendent, Principal, and Teacher within the Wayne Westland Community Schools. Paul is a passionate educator who is dedicated to helping students realize their maximum potential as a lifelong learner and citizen. Dr. Salah earned his doctorate degree at Eastern Michigan University and has chaired various local and statewide committees. He is here today with his lovely wife, Pinky. They have 3, and I love this part, they've been happily married. That's what it says, happily married for 19 years. I love that. I love it. And they have 3 wonderful children. Don't let me make that face. They have 3 wonderful children, 14, 12, and 11. Mila, Salem, and Rowan, those names. And we are just pleased to welcome him today. So come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I hate having my bio right. I'm just going to say that. It's always a little awkward when someone's reading something about you and you're sitting right there. Right? So I think it's really important to start with the heart rather than the head, you know? And so I just want to tell you a quick story about why I love working in education. And the story relates to a kid, a student. Her name is Tiffany. And actually, I met Tiffany when I was engaged in my doctorate work, my dissertation. So my dissertation related to trying to understand why certain kids were suspended or expelled from school more often than other kids. You know, I figured there had to be a reason why that happened, you know? And so part of my study was to actually sit down with kids and ask them a series of questions. I asked them how many times they've been suspended from school, why they were suspended from school. I'm going to tell you what surfaced every single time was a student that had a deep and profound relationship with an adult in his school was less likely to be suspended and expelled from school. This one student, Tiffany, said to me, I asked her what her best educational experience was. And this almost chokes me up every time I think about it. She described an experience when she was actually adjudicated. When she was in juvie, because she felt like the learning was hands-on and that the teachers cared about her. She said, "Teach me, don't tell me." And that just, it crushed me. It spoke volumes about what we need to be thinking about as educators when we think about inspiring and building futures for every single one of our kiddos. And so I take the work of superintendent very seriously. And I start with what I really want you to take away today. Some very key learning targets, because I am a teacher at heart. I think it's important to tell your class or your audience what it is that you want them to hear from you, prior to actually telling them. The first thing I want to talk about is some of my priorities coming into the school district. I want to talk about some points of pride of our schools, the origins of the educational system in our society, and our bond and sinking fund that we'll be asking voters to consider in November of 2019. And believe it or not, it's all going to tie together. So when you leave today, I'm going to ask you, did it tie together? And I hope you say yes, it tied together. So priorities, first and foremost, these are my kids. My oldest here in the corner is Mila. She's 14, she's a freshman. My youngest daughter here, Rowan, in the middle, she's a 5th grader. And then my son, Salem, he's a 7th grader. And I show this, and of course, my lovely wife, I mean, you know her. I showed this picture of my kids because I want you to know that as your superintendent, I'm committed to providing for Huron Valley students what I want for my own kids, which is excellence in academics, which is high levels of rigor, which is athletics and the arts, in order to really meet the needs of a well-rounded person. That's what I want for my kids. And so when I think about that as superintendent, and I think about these guys. These are my HBS kids. This is a group of kids I got to read to, second graders. And this is the title of the book. You can't see it, is Why You Don't Bring an Alligator to School for Show and Tell. and then at the opposite end of the spectrum, these are our brilliant robotics kids for Huron Valley who just won the recent competition at Milford High School. Just amazing group of kids doing amazing things. So I want you to know that as your superintendent, when I make decisions on behalf of the Huron Valley community, I'm thinking about what I would want for my kids, and that is what is good enough for the kids of Huron Valley schools. That's my priority. That's my commitment. So points of pride and general observations about Huron Valley. Did you know that last year our seniors earned $5.2 million in scholarships? How many of you knew that? Couple people in the room. That is remarkable. And I say that because as a school district, as a school community, we've got to celebrate. And we're doing some amazing things for our kids. And they're doing some amazing things and performing and competing at the highest levels. We have a junior kindergarten program, which is very unique to Huron Valley. We actually allow children that are kindergarten eligible, but maybe not quite ready for kindergarten, to have the gift of time. So they can attend kindergarten for 2 consecutive years. So when they hit first grade, they're ready. They're ready for the rigor of that first grade curriculum. And I'm going to tell you, it's rigorous. I have some slides in a few moments where I'm going to actually show you the shift in testing from when we were students and took the lead. How many took the lead? Remember the Michigan Education Assessment Program? Okay, I see some hands going. I'm going to show you the difference between what I had to take versus what our kids are doing now. It's quite a shift. And then we have some remarkable early childhood programming at the Apollo Center, and potentially we could look at expanding that with this bond and this singing fund as an option. Just general observations. Today was no different than my experiences have been in the district. I walk in the door, everybody's incredibly gracious, warm, welcomes me with open arms. I feel so fortunate. People say to me, we're so glad you're here and we're so lucky to have you. I feel the same way. I feel like I'm lucky that I landed in a community that is invested in the schools, that's invested in this community field. I feel like I'm the one who's lucky. So I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing that warm reception, but I have to tell you, it goes both ways. So thank you. So another points of pride. This is Huron Valley Schools compared to the state of Michigan in terms of standardized assessment. What I want to point out here is the red bar is the state, the blue bar is Huron Valley. At the bottom here, you've got the content, which is literacy, by grade level. And what you'll notice is that Huron Valley outperforms the state in every single category. Everyone see that? Okay? That's a point of pride. How many of you knew that? Okay, good. The same is true at the middle school level. The same is true at the high school level. So Huron Valley Schools is doing some pretty amazing things with its students and outperforming the state in every single category. And that's something that as a community, we can all get behind and celebrate. Our kids do better than the state, and our seniors earn $5.2 million in scholarships. But I do want to talk about the origins of our educational system in general. So take a look at this image here. So because I am a teacher at heart, I'm going to make you talk to each other for just a moment. We're going to do an activity. So take a look at this. You've got what looks like to be sort of the boss or the owner down here talking with a colleague or a worker. You've got students on a conveyor belt going into the educational system, creativity, discipline, intelligence, and the output are graduates. So look at that, have a quick table conversation. Just react to it. What are your thoughts? What is it saying? What does it remind you of? There's no wrong answers here.
Factory floor. Pressing identical pieces out. Uniform. Going in as uniform and going out as uniform. Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything else in CM? Creativity, discipline, intelligence. Okay. But it almost seems like it's contradictory to what you're showing, right?
Yeah, because, well.
Okay. So can I get two brave individuals who are willing to just give us a quick reaction? 2. 1, 2. Okay, go ahead.
Honestly, I think we all agree that it just takes away creativity and individuality.
Okay, good. Thank you. Takes away creativity, individuality. Anybody else have a similar kind of table conversation? I see some nodding of heads. Okay. Over here.
Yeah, cookie cutter, we all in the table. No one's individual.
Cookie
We're all
cutter.
the same.
All the same, right? So the state of Michigan requires us to attend school for 180 days. Requires us to attend 1,098 hours of education. So how many of you know a student that it took them more than 180 days to master the content of a subject area? But you only get 180 days. That's the rules, right? How many of you know a student that needs extra tutoring? So maybe it'll take them 220 days. Not everybody can afford a tutor though. Is that right? Mm-hmm. What about a child that can master the content in 160 days? Anybody know anyone like that? Okay, but we have this educational system that was built based upon an assembly line in the early 1900s, which was modeled after the Prussian Army, actually. And the calendar was built around harvesting season. How many of you have children that go work the crops in the summer? Right, so do you get what I'm saying here? So remember Tiffany. Teach me, don't tell me. She didn't fit. She didn't fit the system. She didn't fit the system. She didn't fit the conveyor belt model where you move to creativity, boom, you dump 180 days of work. You move down the line, boom, you're to mastery. She struggled with that. So the system said, well, we need to just exit her through frequent suspension because it wasn't equipped to handle it. So here's what I'm saying to you. We have to think differently about the way with which we inspire and build futures, which is the mission statement for those of you who do not know of the Huron Valley District. How do we inspire and build futures one student at a time? This is my daughter. It's kind of hard to see. My daughter with her friend, and it's summertime, okay? Ooh, summer. So they're sitting in our kitchen, and I walk in the kitchen, and I'm like, oh man, what are they doing? They're not talking to each other. It's like, gosh, you know, stupid technology. Get off your technology. Go outside and play, right? So we make our kids do it, right? We make our kids go outside and play. But here's what was interesting about this, okay? I walked up behind them. I wanted to see what they were looking at. They were playing Monopoly.
Monopoly like that?
They were playing Monopoly, sitting next to each other on iPads in the same room in a kitchen. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, we used to have Monopoly marathons when it was really hot outside. And me and my buddies would sit around and we just played for like 12 hours straight, on days when it was really hot. So here's my point. Kids are learning and doing things differently now than we did. So we have to think differently about the way with which we approach students today. And so that means challenging our paradigm. That means approaching the work in a little bit of a different way. And so I mentioned standardized assessments, okay? So I'm not a huge fan of test. We frankly test kids too much. And we don't need all the tests to give us the day-to-day instructional information we need to shift and adjust instruction to the needs of kids. But it's part of the deal. So we have to give tests. I just want to point out something to you. This is the old test. Okay, a couple key points I want to make here. Notice the question stem. According to this selection, a house rents false nest is A, B, or C. There's one correct answer. Anybody remember the strategy? Your teacher might tell you when you're taking a test, if you don't know the answer, just guess consistency. Because you have a 25% chance or a 30% chance of getting the correct answer. Okay, those days are like way gone. Way out the door, gone. Okay, so here's the new test. So first and foremost, I should have had a number 2 pencil up on the other slide. Because remember, you had to use a number 2 pencil, right? So it was paper. You filled in the ovals and everything had to be filled in perfectly. Now the test is completely online. It's completely computer-based and it's computer adaptive. So in many instances, when you ask a question, the test spits out another question based upon the level of difficulty in the question you answered previously, right? So the test is totally different. Secondly, what I would point out is, I want you to just notice the technology skills that are required to take the test in and of itself. This right here is a scrolling bar where you can read this passage. It goes up and down. So it's a lengthy passage. You have to read the entire thing. There's a highlighter because they expect you to highlight important passages of the section. There's a magnifying glass so that you can get closer on things that you can't quite read. There's an eraser. There's a back and a forth button. And what's interesting, whereas there was one correct answer, this question has 2 parts. Which sentence best describes the lesson in the passage? And it's which best. There isn't an absolute. It's what best describes, right? So there could be some nuances in interpretation that somebody can make a case for. Same question. Part B. Again, which best describes. Look at this one. Same passage, only they have to arrange the items in chronological order by dragging them and moving them. So, did I mention this is a 3rd grade test? This is 3rd grade. This is a 3rd grade test. What does the word jumble most likely mean? I don't know if I knew what jumble meant when I was in 3rd grade. I definitely didn't know what dialogue meant in 3rd grade. And in this one, they have to pick 3 correct choices. So there's not one right answer anymore, and you move on to the next question. Okay, turn and talk. I want you just to react to the last several slides I shared regarding the assessment. Are you surprised? Is this like, oh, yeah, I do that, no big deal? Quick conversation.
I really thought
I didn't even think about that. I was shocked. And what I was thinking was based on the past. Yes, this would be really difficult for me to have a computer at home. And you know, the teachers are sending homework home that you have to go on. You know, their parents would have to take them to the library and then they would have to copy them all in there. Back to the library. But if you were a kid who had gone to academic institution to a degree like something like that, or you were a kid that just got introduced to computers in first or second grade, I don't know, when do they get computers? Yeah, but I mean, if you were a kid that could do it at home and do your homework, that was like
Okay.
you got a chance to take care of it.
So if I can get you back,
Because of your exposure, so.
can I get? This is great. Can I get two people to agree to react to that? What was your quick conversation? Two people. 1, 2. Okay.
One of the things that we thought is it's so different than what we learned back. So a key part is for parents, how do you teach kids, or how do you help them to take this test? And there's so much integral just about the test taking itself rather than the questions.
Right.
So you're teaching them a whole new skill level.
Right. Thank you for that. So one of the things we're going to talk about today through the bond, that we're going to be asking voters to consider is modernizing our academic environment, because the current structure doesn't allow us, in terms of technology, to do some of these things that we have to teach kids. We need Wi-Fi. We just need it in order to do business, just normal business. Yeah.
One of the concerns we discussed back here was the options, and it's not an absolute answer. Double-edged sword. We're creating a society that many of us are dealing with right now with the millennials, where you've got to explain everything, why you're doing it this way, and why it this way. Right. On the other side, it's encouraging creativity. So there's, I just created a millennial.
I can add something
Yeah,
really
sure.
quick. So I think another big part of it is that every kid is different and every kid is an individual, and they're not going to necessarily feel the same things. What's important to one kid and what one kid feels like, matches, the story isn't going to be the same for another kid.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
I think the question that I have is, if you go to a restaurant or you go to people's houses, and today it's out coming the iPads, out coming the phones, nobody talks. How do you build that, moving forward? Because I think that's going to affect much younger children. It used to be that you would talk and children would pick up your format, your technique, your voice. And when there is no voice, and all you have is type, how's that going to move forward?
I will tell you, it will certainly impact our society. But what I know for sure is technology is not going away, right? I mean, it just continues to grow and evolve. And so, I think that's part of what we have to be thinking about in the education space is how do we do and both? We've got to teach both. Technology is a necessary component of society and operations. I mean, by 2022, we're going to have autonomous vehicles on the road. That's like, I never would have thought when I was a kid. I thought that was just like sci-fi, science fiction, never going to happen. But it's real. It's going to happen in a couple of years from now. It's just moving at such an exponential pace. So our challenge as a school district and as a community is to partner together and think creatively about how we accomplish the social skills that are necessary to be successful in society, but at the same time doing that with the society changing, because we know we're not going to ever change that. So really good points. I appreciate you sharing the feedback. So I think that the lesson here is we have to think more strategically about the way we do business. The MEEP's gone, the MSTEP's here, and it will be something else that's even more advanced, I have no doubt, in the next 5 to 10 years. So, this is hard to read, but it's important because it tells the story of kind of why we are where we are, even with this whole testing phenomenon. So I have some words here. How many of you can see this? Okay, most of you can see it. Try to at least read the bold print here. This is 1983, so the peak of the Cold War. and a report that was published about the state of education. This is the opening paragraph.
Sounds like today.
It does. There's this fear factor, right? And we all are kind of living with it today. I mean, words like our once unchallenged preeminence in commerce, industry, science, and technological innovation are being overtaken by competitors throughout the world. Educational foundations of our society are presently being eroded by a rising tide of mediocrity. There's a book, Rick DeFore wrote it, called In Praise of American Education. And what's interesting is he actually studies the factors that look at international testing. You know, our country is outperforming historical trends in terms of achievement in science, mathematics, you know, social studies, the arts, more now than we ever did in any other time in our history. Yet there still is this undue pressure that education is not doing a good job, not doing enough. Can we get better? Absolutely. We can get better. We can do more. We can inspire and build teachers one student at a time. We do have to look at the system though. And it's not just a Huron Valley thing. It is a state of Michigan thing. It is a national phenomenon that we have to just explore in a totally different way. You know, some countries actually only allow their enrollment in education schools to mirror that of birth rates. Can you imagine that? So you only have enough teachers for the number of students you have, rather than this sort of capitalist kind of, come get an education degree. You know how many people graduate with an education degree that don't want to do anything in education? They've got school loans that are massive. Okay, I digress. Proposal A is another important element that has affected our state in particular. It's a 25-year-old funding mechanism that changed the way schools were funded and actually impacts us today, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. No Child Left Behind, we talked about testing. There's a reason why testing is required everywhere. So under No Child Left Behind in 2002, basically the law said by 2014 that every child will be proficient in literacy and mathematics by 2014. 100% of children would be proficient. Everybody just sort of scratches their head like, why do we do it this way? Why do we pass legislation that is totally not research-based and doesn't align with best practices? The third grade reading legislation. I mean, I don't want to get too off topic here, but I will tell you, retention, we have a law in Michigan that says if you're not proficient by the end of third grade, then you should be retained. So right now in the state of Michigan, only 50% of children are actually proficient. That means we're going to retain 50% of children in third grade. I mean, it's just another one of those things. We should be thinking about how do we meet the needs of children where they're at. And if it takes them 220 days to master the content, let's give them 220 days. Let's not say after 180, you're going to stay in the same grade. Okay. So my point is we can't use 1983, 1994, or 2002 solutions to work in 2019. So school funding basics. This all ties to school funding. And I'm going to make it all work here. You ready? So basically, to simplify this whole school funding conversation, I want to focus on two categories. We're going to focus right here, state aid foundation allowance. So if you go back to proposal A, that funded the way with which Michigan schools receive their allocation today. So that foundation allowance is what we get every single year as a Huron Valley School District to pay our teachers, to buy books, to pay for utilities. That's pretty much what the state aid foundation allowance provides the Huron Valley schools. 85% of our budget is in people. The other 15% go to books, instructional materials, and utilities. Okay, you with me so far? We'll talk about this in a moment, because this is sort of the other piece of the pie. So Huron Valley, based upon this funding model, receives $7,871 per pupil. That's what we receive. And that includes, that shouldn't say excludes, that should say includes, my apologies. That includes transportation costs, special education costs, poverty, students who come to us with, from poverty, as well as students that come to us with challenges in understanding the English language. Because would it be a shock to you if I said it actually takes more money to educate a child who comes from poverty?
No.
Would that be a surprise? What about a child who, speaks English as a second language? That makes sense, right? Okay. So our EL population in the district is increasing. We've seen a slight uptick in poverty in the district. Okay, we still get 78, 71. We also, in Oakland County, happen to be one of the largest districts in terms of square miles. We are 99.3 square miles. We drive to and from Europe every single day. Our bus fleet drives to and from Europe every single day. Think about that. Massive. We transport about 4,800 children every single day. It costs $1,158 just to get our kids to and from school every day, per student, out of the 78, 71, based upon this antiquated model of funding. And so I lift that as an important point because in Oakland County, we're in the bottom third in terms of what school districts receive. This is actually what it looks like. So Huron Valley receives 78.71. Bloomfield Hills receives $12,244 per pupil to operate their day-to-day, books, teachers, and utilities. If Huron Valley received that foundation allowance, it would be close to $30 million more dollars a year. I'm seeing a lot of
How do they come up with those?
oh my gosh.
How do they come up with that?
So that's a great question. So based on the 25-year-old model, Proposal A, whatever millage rate was set in the community at the time dictated who would receive the base foundation and who would receive the additional allowance. So in Huron Valley, we are in the bottom third in terms of the per pupil foundation allowance that we receive just to operate the day-to-day. And these districts receive that huge amount to operate their day-to-day, plus they're passing bonds and sinking funds and millages to manage their infrastructure, upgrade their facilities, pay for modern learning environments, upgrade technology, upgrade their busing fleets, all the things, replacing roofs and boilers and parking lots, all the things that bond money is used for that our foundation allowance cannot be used for. Or can be used for, I should say. We just don't have enough of it to do what needs to be done in Huron Valley. So, and I will also point out that you take a district like Berkeley. See, Berkeley here receives 8,313. Okay, they do not provide transportation. Somebody said that. They don't even provide transportation. So whereas we expend a pretty significant dollar amount per student just to get them to and from school, they can spend their entire foundation allowance just on the instructional programs, the instructional design. I mean, to me, so this is what fires me up as your superintendent. The children in Huron Valley schools shouldn't be worth less than other children across the state of Michigan. It's not right. It's not right. Why are my kids worth less than others? And so I put up here our county data because I think it's important to show, because it tells a little bit of a different story. Because resources matter. So we outperform the state in every single category, which I'm really proud of. But when it comes to comparison against Oakland County, we outperform in some areas. That's what these pluses are for. And we either are right about equal or the same or slightly below where others are. In my mind goes to, what if I had those additional resources? What could I do to inspire and build futures one student at a time for Huron Valley schools? And the same trend continues throughout. We're above the county, which I'm really proud of, especially given our foundational allowance, but we're below in 6th grade, for example, in 7th grade in ELA. Tells a story. Oh, geez, what did I do? Can you put that back? Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I was on a roll.
Keep going.
High school, same trend. And what's interesting about this is you notice actually the gap is smaller at the earlier grades, and then it tends to get a little higher. Resources, right, makes a big difference. Is that clearer for you? Do you know what I'm trying to get across here? Okay. So when we talk about the bond, so we talked about the one category, which is the state foundational allowance. So now when we talk about the bond, and what we're going to be asking voters to consider in November of 2019. We can't use bond or sinking fund money to pay for salaries, books, or utilities. It's a totally separate pot of money, and it cannot be used for the same thing. That's why we're asking voters to consider supporting a bond in the community. And so bonds can pay for boilers, heaters, roofs, parking lots. It can pay for buses, and it can pay for new construction, okay? I have been in many districts across the state of Michigan in my former role at the intermediate school district. I've walked many districts. I'm going to tell you, Huron Valley, in some places, the need it's imminent. I mean, frankly, it's like end of life in some instances. Parking lots that are just totally crumbling, and I'm just telling you what I see from sort of an outsider's perspective. Asking for this support is really important, and it's my job to just educate you on the facts. So when it comes to the bond, what's important to realize is that we're at a key position as a community because the debt mill is falling off and there's a no tax rate increase to the community. And I know that's a really important point, and I know it's difficult to support increases in mills, and that's not what we're asking for. We're just asking that we maintain the status quo, and what that will allow us to do is take care of the needs of the school district. And it will actually put us in a reasonable cycle where debt mill will fall off every 10 years, and we can just take care of the needs at a no increase to the school district. And that's what's important for me to share with you as taxpayers, as community members, as voters, especially as you're talking with other people. And we're actually asking for two different items. We're asking for a bond, which is the debt mill falling off, and we're asking for a renewal of the sinking fund, which allows us to do much of the same, but there's such vast needs that we really need both. The sinking fund, so whereas the bond is our resources that are generated all at one time, so it'll give us about 110 million right off the bat, and then another 55 million after 5 years. The sinking fund generates about $2.1 million a year that helps us take care of needs as they arise on a year-to-year basis. To give you some context, Walled Lake Schools is going out for a bond in May. They're asking for $316 million. So just to give you some context of what other districts are asking for and passing. So the purpose, I've talked a little bit about this, but we have a Building Futures Committee. It's about 53 people. There are actually some people in this room that are on this Building Futures Committee that's looking at prioritizing the needs of the school district. This is the charge that was given to that group, and I'm just going to read this to you because I think it's important for us to hear it. The purpose is to elevate the community through our schools by enhancing safety, security, academics, arts, athletics, by means of reasonable facility enhancements designed to create equity across Huron Valley. That's the purpose of the Building Futures Committee. That's the work that they've been doing over the last couple of months. And so I talked about us doing this with no increase. Here's why. Because in 2020-21, you'll notice the blue is the proposed millage. The gray is the existing millage. So 19-20, you'll notice we're at 7 mills. And 21, that drops. So the proposed mill is this increase that we're asking for. That doesn't raise the tax rate above what we currently are receiving as a school district. That's the number. And the building and site fund expires in 2019. We currently have a sinking fund in place, and those are typically a 10-year sinking fund. So 2019 is the last year for the sinking fund, which is why we're going out in September, because the debt note falls off. Did I say September? November. Because the debt note falls off and the sinking fund expires.
And how's the sinking fund funded?
Same way, taxpayers. But again, both would be exactly what your current rate is, which is not an increase. Okay, I just dropped a ton of knowledge. So, what questions do you have for me? Yeah, I'll start here and I'll go. Okay.
When the legislators did a snapshot 25 years ago, was it Hadley in it?
Hadley was part of it.
And anyways, we have not been able to get any of our legislators off that spot where they are. They just think it's fine. How can we accomplish that? Because even though they live in the bottom third and we do so much to look at it, like everything's fine, I agree with it, but we see the need here.
A lot of places see the need.
So how can we get our legislators to
Yeah,
support
that's
us to maybe revisit that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and I'm happy to go into greater depth with anybody that wants to spend some more time on it. But there's an initiative called the School Finance Research Collaborative that studied this very question. The School Finance Research Collaborative said, okay, the system's broken. We see it. So how do we create greater equity in the state of Michigan? And so it started with the legislature. They hired a company to say, what does it take to educate a typical Michigan student, right? And the findings of that report have been published for 2 years now, and the current governor is trying to move towards implementing that report. That would be huge in going towards that step. I'm just going to tell you right now, that can't happen overnight. Because the findings of that report, just for the base foundation, was like $9,590 per student across the entire state of Michigan, is what they're saying it takes bare minimum to educate a general ed student. That doesn't include poverty or transportation or any other things we talked about. That's not realistic. As your superintendent, I know it's not realistic right now. You know, it'll take a long time to get there, you know, to do it in a reasonable, responsible sort of way. Yes. Others, yes.
What can we do to help you and the Board of Education deal with